Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to be discussing aqueous humor. Now what exactly is aqueous humor? It's a transparent water-like fluid similar to blood plasma, but obviously this contains a way lesser protein, and it is created from the ciliary body, which is a structure that supports the lens of the eyeball. It fills both the interior and posterior chambers of the eye, and it shouldn't be confused with the vitreous humor, which is located in the space between the lens and retina. This I'll explain to you. And yeah, so vitreous humor and aqueous humor, you can see them clearly in this image right here. Aqueous humor, it fills the interior, you can say section of the eye. So eye is divided into two sections. This is the interior section, this is the posterior section. So vitreous humor, it fills the posterior section, whereas your aqueous humor, it fills the interior section. And then the interior section is further divided into two chambers. One is the interior chamber and the other is the posterior chamber. Anterior chamber lies right in front of the iris, and posterior chamber lies behind the iris and in front of the lens. So this is the posterior chamber, this is the interior chamber, and it completely forms the interior section. So that's the interior section and that's the posterior section. Vitreous humor is found in the posterior section and aqueous humor is found in the interior section. I hope I've made that clear. And let's just for a second talk about vitreous humor, even though this video solely focuses on aqueous humor. Vitreous humor is a gelatinous mass, or it's a jelly-like substance. Aqueous humor, on the other hand, is an aqueous fluid. It is an aqueous fluid, which is much of a water consistency that allows it to run around and circulate, right? So when you talk about vitreous humor, it's a gelatinous mass which is present behind the lens and in front of the retina, and it consists of fibrils of elongated proteoglycan fibers. This is super important that you should know. Vitreous humor, it consists of proteoglycan fibers. So there are numerous proteoglycan fibers in the vitreous humor. Keep that in mind. What does this do? This basically holds the entire substance together. And another very important thing, as I've already mentioned, is that vitreous humor doesn't circulate around. It remains where it is. Aqueous humor, on the other hand, it has a tendency to circulate, right? So I wanted to really get this out of the way so that you don't confuse it with vitreous humor. So once again, vitreous humor, it is in the posterior chamber of the eye, and it lies between the lens and the retina. And then vitreous humor, it does not have the tendency to circulate around. Other than that, it is a gelatinous mass, which means it has very thick consistency, gel-like consistency, and it consists of a lot of fibrils of proteoglycans, right? So that's about vitreous humor. Now our video focuses on aqueous humor. So now let's completely shift our focus towards that. And I really hope that you understand this part. Interior section. It has two regions: interior chamber and posterior chamber. And aqueous humor, it covers both. It fills both the chambers. Don't forget that part. Now, aqueous humor freely circulates continuously, being produced and drained. So here I'm trying to say that aqueous humor, it freely circulates. Other than that, it's continuously produced and drained at the same time. Because imagine if it was solely just being produced and not drained, then your eye, it would completely be bulged out and the intraocular pressure would be too high. So for that very reason, you need to have a drainage system as well that will drain out this vitreous this aqueous humor, because we do know that it's continuously being produced, so it also needs some drainage mechanism. Now what's the function of aqueous humor? Super important. First thing first, aqueous humor, it keeps your eyeball distended. It ensures that it's distended. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that it maintains the intraocular pressure. Your intraocular pressure needs to stay between 10 to 20 millimeter mercury. 15 millimeter mercury is the average. So this is the range because it can fluctuate. So it maintains the intraocular pressure. That's its second function. First is to keep the eyeball distended. Second is to maintain the intraocular pressure. Third is very important to provide the nutrition to the avascular structures of the eye. What are the avascular structures of the eye? Lens and cornea. These are the avascular structure of the eye because they do not have their own blood supply. So what does aqueous humor do? It gives them the nutrition that is needed by both of them, right? And you should know that aqueous humor, it spans between lens and cornea, this region. So these are the avascular structures, and it provides nutrition to both of them, or any structure which is also in the nearby region. For example, even there's iris, ciliary body itself, suspensory ligaments, all of them. So yeah, first thing first, it keeps the eyeball distended. Second, intraocular pressure. Third, nutrition. And what comes in nutrition? Uh, aqueous humor has glucose, amino acids, and very important, it also has ascorbic acid, which is your vitamin C. So this is really important. You should know vitamin C. It's an antioxidant. So aqueous humor has glucose, amino acids, and also vitamin C, ascorbic acid. Then fourth important thing is that it washes the lens and cornea. What's the other function? To wash both of these structures. And finally, it removes the waste metabolites. Whatever waste metabolites are present in this region, it will drain them, right? So it will basically remove them. So what are the five functions of aqueous humor? Firstly, it keeps the eyeball distended. Secondly, it maintains the intraocular pressure. Third, it gives nutrition. Fourth, it washes the lens and cornea. And fifth, it removes the waste metabolites. Really important. Keep them in mind. Distension, intraocular pressure, and then nutrition, then it washes them, and waste metabolites removal. Production. Now we've covered the basics, right? And the functions and the definition and everything. Now let's move to three other things that we have to discuss, and that's the core substance of the video. First thing is production. First, we'll discuss the production. After production, we'll discuss the circulation. Then we'll discuss the drainage. So these are the three things we have to focus on this video. Now, how is aqueous humor produced? It's produced by the ciliary body. This region right here, I'm sure you can see. It's produced by ciliary body, and I'll explain you in more detail. But before that, look at this image. This is the lens, you can see, right? And these are the suspensory ligaments which attach to the ciliary body, right here. And from ciliary body, you have these ligaments coming out called suspensory ligaments. These keep lens in position, right? These hold lens in position. And this is the iris, the colored part. Like this gives your eye the color, right? And this is the cornea. So what I told you previously, that your eye is divided into two sections, anterior and posterior. So this is the posterior section or posterior cavity, which contains the vitreous humor. So it's also known as vitreous chamber. This is the interior chamber from here. Sorry, interior section, right? This is the posterior section, this is the interior section, and our interior section is divided into an interior chamber and a posterior chamber. So interior chamber is right in front of your iris. So you can see here, this is the iris, right? So in front of iris, this is your interior chamber. Right behind the iris, this is the posterior chamber. I hope this is clear. Here also you can see the same thing. Iris, anterior to that, that's interior chamber. Posterior to that, that's a posterior chamber. And this is iris, right? Now, how much of aqueous humor is produced? What do you think? It is 2.5 microliter per minute. This is the value. 2.5 microliter. This seems really less, but eye is such a small structure. In that, even this amount of liquid is a lot. This amount of fluid is a lot. Now, our eye contains 0.3 ml of aqueous humor. Like this is the amount that is there present in your eye every time. If you measure this aqueous humor, right, it is 0.3 ml. And on top of that, 2.5 microliter per minute, not even hour, not even day, not even week, per minute is being added. Even right now as we talk, 2.5 microliter of aqueous humor is being produced per minute. So, and other than that, every hour that amount of aqueous humor is replaced. How is that? Because whatever is produced, it's drained. So, the aqueous humor that we have right now in our eye, 1 hour later, that won't be present there. There'll be a completely new, dose of your aqueous humor. Now, production. Let's focus on that. This is your ciliary body, right? This region, and then it gives rise to iris. Um, Very important to know that ciliary body is the main producing region of your aqueous humor. Before that, understand these structures here. This is pars plana, which is the posterior plane region, and this is pars plicata, which is basically the interior corrugated portion. Corrugated means that if you have ever seen a cardboard, it has such projections in it, corrugations, right? So those corrugations basically they look quite similar to this one. So yeah, this is named as pars plicata and this is pars plana. Now, why am I calling it anterior and posterior? You must be getting confused that, oh, this should be pars plicata, this should be pars plana because this is plane, this is very corrugated, and this is anterior and this is posterior. No, we're not talking about this being anterior and this being posterior. No, when you look at eye, this is the eye, right? This is cornea. So this region is anterior and this is posterior. So basically, this is interior and this is posterior. So when you're talking about this interior, it means that this is pars plicata, this is pars plana, posterior region, and it's plain. See, there are no corrugations. It's completely plain. Here you have corrugations, so that's pars plicata. What is this structure? It's ciliary body. So we're discussing ciliary body in detail right here. So this is pars plicata, this is pars plana because it's plain. And this is there are a lot of corrugations. And this has a lot of significance because exactly from this plicata region, there'll be cells that will be epithelial cells that will be producing um, the aqueous humor. So super important to understand the anatomy first. And, and this is your iris, and iris has its own muscles that I don't think we need to discuss right now. Um, Now, when you talk about a ciliary body, there are three very important structures that you need to understand, especially when you're discussing the production of aqueous humor. One is the ciliaris muscle. So here I've drawn it in brown. It has its longitudinal, circular, and circular smooth muscles, longitudinal smooth muscles. So this is ciliaris muscle. And then the another second important thing is the stroma. And a ciliary body has highly vascular stroma. It's super important. And then the third important structure is the epithelium. Here in green you can see the ciliary epithelium. It's non-pigmented ciliary epithelium. So this is anatomy and tidbits that you need to know when you're talking about the ciliary body, right? So ciliaris muscle, highly vascular stroma, epithelium. Just learn these for now. Now what exactly happens is that um, this region of this epithelium, right? This is responsible for secreting aqueous humor. So this actively secretes aqueous humor, and when it secretes that, where do you think aqueous humor comes? Into the posterior chamber, because posterior chamber ranges from the iris to the lens. So this is the posterior chamber, right? So right behind iris. So therefore, this epithelium, non-pigmented ciliary epithelium, it has obviously channels, sodium channels, voltage-gated sodium channels. So they secrete sodium, chloride, bicarbonate, and these all are basically they become constituents of your aqueous humor. So yeah, that's what I was talking about. That this epithelium is responsible for. I hope this is not getting too dragged, but I have to explain you the details so you can understand the basics. I'll make a shorter version of this, which will be quick and summarized, where I won't be, really forcing things and explaining to you guys in much depth. So I'll also record a summarized video. So this epithelium, it is solely responsible this epithelium, right? The non-pigmented ciliary epithelium. It's solely responsible for the production of aqueous humor. And where does this aqueous humor come? Into the posterior chamber. This is super important. This comes as MCQs. And then it is followed by passive release of sodium, chloride, and bicarbonate ions. And what happens when these ions are high in the fluid here? For example, there's high concentration of these ions. What happens is that the osmotic pressure increases. So once osmotic pressure increases, water is also dragged out of the blood vessels, not blood vessels, but you can say vascular stroma here. And vascular, yeah, basically blood vessels. So the water also gets dragged along with it, and yeah, that uh, helps to maintain the intraocular pressure. So one feature of your aqueous humor was also function was to maintain the intraocular pressure. Now, production. So production happens ciliary. I already told you there's ciliary body. It has ciliary muscle. It has stroma, highly vascular stroma, epithelium, non-pigmented ciliary epithelium. It secretes the aqueous humor. Then sodium chloride, bicarbonate. The follow along osmotic pressure increases. Water also dragged out. And where does all this aqueous humor come? Firstly into posterior chamber of the eye. And yep, I think I've already discussed half of the ciliary body, folic part, secretory epithelium, all of this is discovered. And you also have glucose, amino acid, and vitamin C. Therefore, your aqueous humor is formed. Once your aqueous humor is formed, let's talk about its circulation. How does it circulate? Now, did I miss any of the images here? Okay, pars plana and pars plicata, the corrugated region in the iris. This is basically, this is the interior part and this is the posterior cornea, and then you can see the eye lens. Fine, so circulation. When you talk about circulation, do I have any diagram for circulation? Nope, I don't, which is sad because I should be having one. But anyways, when you talk about the circulation of aqueous humor, so what happens is that first of all of that, whatever, yeah, okay, perfect, this will work. So it's produced into the posterior chamber. So from posterior chamber, all of that flows to the anterior chamber, right? And in anterior chamber, is this angle between the cornea and iris. This is also known as iridocorneal angle. And yeah, this is how you call it, iridocorneal angle. So all of that, sorry, aqueous humor, there's no blood in the eye. All of that aqueous humor, it flows into this angle between the um, iris and the cornea and the iris. So that's called iridocorneal angle. So this is basically circulation from the posterior to anterior chamber. That's basically it that you need to know about the circulation. That it flows from posterior to anterior circulation, anterior chamber between the uh, cornea and iris, iridocorneal angle, right? Now, next comes the drainage part. What exactly happens is that in that iridocorneal angle, you have a trabecular meshwork like this. There's structures, right? And what does this structure do? It basically, uh, uh, okay, it drains the, you can say it drains the aqueous humor. It has other function also, so I was thinking if I should explain that or not. But wait, just leave that for a second because you guys will get confused. So this trabecular meshwork, from there, your aqueous humor moves to the canal of Schlemms. This is the canal of the Schlemms. So it moves here. From there, it moves to collector's channel. From collector's channel, it moves to aqueous vein. From aqueous vein, it moves to episcleral vein. From there, it moves to extraocular vein. And that's how all of it is drained and then recycled. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is the canal of Schlemm. This is the trabecular meshwork. So as I told you, from trabecular meshwork, it goes to the canal of Schlemms, then collector's channel, aqueous vein, episcleral vein, and extraocular vein, and then it goes into the systemic circulation. So this is the drainage flowchart. Now, pathology. What happens exactly? That some sort of diseases arise here. In that, what exactly happens is that, for example, in case of hemorrhage, what happens? A lot of blood, right? So a lot of RBCs. In case of infection, what happens? A lot of white blood cells. Why does this look like N? It's supposed to be W. Now, in both these conditions, your cellular debris increases. And what does it do? It blocks the drainage system. It blocks those trabecular meshworks. It blocks the canal of Schlemms. In this case, it causes secondary glaucoma. Now, what happens in secondary glaucoma is that uh, this right trabecular meshwork. It's not. I don't even know why I don't have a diagram for it. But let's think. Um, cornea, iris. Right, this is the trabecular meshwork, right? So in this, what happens is that your, for example, if this is blocked, then what happens is that whatever aqueous humor your eye has, it won't be able to be drained. It can't get drained here. And instead, it will start accumulating in your eye, and your intraocular pressure will increase. Once the intraocular pressure increases, obviously your um, eye will get super distended, like super distended. Yeah, it needs to keep it distended, but just to a certain extent, not a lot. When this gets distended, it automatically disturbs your retina. It pushes your retina back, and it also can damage the optic nerve. So it's really dangerous, glaucoma. So what exactly happens in glaucoma? That your meshwork is blocked, and when this is blocked, the fluid starts accumulating. Intraocular pressure increases. Once that increases, then your eye will be getting distended, retina will be pushed back, and your optic nerve can get damaged, and this can potentially lead to blindness. Very sad, right? This is glaucoma. Now, this is secondary glaucoma. To prevent this, what can be done? And there's also a primary glaucoma, which is open angle and closed angle. But anyways, I don't think you need to discuss that for now. But yeah, as I was saying, that trabecular meshwork, even that helps to maintain physiologic resistance, because obviously your eye is basically for example, that entire region where aqueous humor is present, so it's a free region, right? Your aqueous humor can move wheresoever it wants to. But this trabecular meshwork, it provides sort of physiologic resistance, and that helps to maintain the intraocular pressure. In old age, what happens is that this meshwork, it starts sclerosing or hardening or fibrosing, and because of this, it once it hardens, so it gives unduly high resistance. Like first it was giving resistance, that's fine, but it shouldn't be giving unduly high resistance. Here I'm talking about the physiologic resistance offered by the trabecular meshwork, right? So that unduly high resistance, it increases the intraocular pressure. Obviously, again, it causes glaucoma, but this is primary glaucoma, which is caused by issues with the hardening of the trabecular meshwork, and then its physiologic resistance increases. Secondary glaucoma is when there is some sort of cellular debris which is stuck in the. This sounds so gross, but this actually happens. And as it gets stuck in the trabecular meshwork, it blocks the drainage system, and therefore it causes glaucoma, secondary glaucoma. Now, to prevent this, our eye obviously must be having some defense mechanism, right? So that is, yes, it has two things that it does. One is it has an accessory drainage pathway, and in that pathway, what happens is that it's uveoscleral pathway. Uveoscleral pathway is that instead of it draining into your trabecular meshwork, right? Instead, it drains into the ciliary body. Now, you must be thinking how. So this is your iris, right? Okay, I've drawn, yeah, here. So this is your iris, right? But there is a region of ciliary body here as well. So instead of going and getting drained into the trabecular meshwork here, which is here, trabecular meshwork, it goes and drains into the ciliary body itself. From ciliary body, it will go to the choroid, and this is the pathway: ciliaris muscle, ciliary body, choroid, suprachoroidal space, which means above choroid. There is a space called suprachoroidal space. From that, it will move into scleral venous network and episcleral venous network. Scleral and then episcleral, above sclera. So here, the venous network. It starts draining into that. And even like now, this pathway is activated, but it only drains about 10% of your aqueous humor, not the 90%. So for that 90% drainage, you need to have the trabecular meshwork functioning perfectly fine. Other than that, to prevent this, our eye, it's so nice, it also has the phagocytic cells, which basically sort of engulfs the cellular debris. So I hope this was clear. I'll make summarizing shorter version because this is too long. Thank you.